Here's a good overview of the project, so check this out.
We live in Shoreline, which is the next town north of Seattle. We just love the sort of outdoorsy lifestyle, fishing for salmon and crabbing.
Puget Sound, there's so much to do out here.
The thing about Shoreline is the lots are much, much larger than in the higher density areas of Seattle. And so it started from this inkling of an idea of just a simple studio square we can rent out, make some side hustle cash on.
We originally had talked about a smaller structure. It's not gonna be that much more expensive to have it a little more livable, and have a little bit higher square footage.
And Sean told us, I'm starting this new company to build backyard cottages with green building and sustainable homes.
It made us start to think we can actually live in this versus we're just gonna use this as a rental for somebody else.
We were only living upstairs in the 900 square foot part of the home. To lower our cost of living while renting out our home, we're able to save up more money now that we live in this space. We're really changing the way we live in a really positive way.
The carbon impact of this home is very low. We don't have any concrete foundation here. I use something called diamond piers. So there's 23 of those underneath this house. That is the foundation of the house. There was no excavators, no dust, no diesel.
We were very impressed. It was not a massive construction crew. It was just Sean. And he was out here hanging off the rafters of the roof, single-handedly nailing the boards in.
I framed this house out of almost all reclaimed lumber. 100-plus-year-old, mostly fir, from the region.
Not only does it feel good to bring it back to life again, but also feature it, whether it's the front wall of the house or the inside wall when you walk in.
The thing I love about reclaimed wood is you see all the nail holes and bolt holes, and it's got some character to it.
There's actually some of the wood still has tree sap coming out of it from 100 years ago.
When it was first being framed out, I was looking at it, I was like, this is gonna be way too small. 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, and living space. But once the finishes started going in, the flooring and everything, it felt perfect.
You just feel cozy and you feel homey, and most people say, this doesn't even feel like 700 square feet, and they haven't even seen the bedrooms or the bathroom yet.
I think the biggest way we made it feel bigger is the ceiling height.
When he first brought it to us and showed us the initial render, it's like, these are gonna be 13-foot ceilings, it's gonna be really tall. And we're like, yes, absolutely do that. Having a bunch of windows to have natural daylight is so important here in Seattle.
It feels bright and warm in here at the same time. Our kitchen is incredibly functional, and I was worried moving in here that downsizing to a small apartment kitchen would feel tight.
We cook every night, and it doesn't feel smaller than the big kitchen that we had before.
There's a full pantry that you can open with these deep drawers that allow you to access and actually see your food. This amazing spice rack, which I've always wanted. We have a 24-inch sink, which I thought was tiny, but the deep sink actually allows you to really use that space effectively.
These countertops are Madrona wood. It's a local, sustainably sourced wood. It's a very hard wood, durable.
Sean really brought the vision for this project. He brought the design, he brought the level of detail to the green materials. We were just gonna put cheap vinyl plastic floors in here. The Cork Floors, I can't get enough of them. I didn't think I would love them this much, but I just do. They're cozy, they stay room temperature, and they look really good, and they hide all of the pet hair.
Cork is a renewable resource. They don't cut down cork trees. They take the bark off, they process it, the tree grows the bark back. The cork is the bark.
The house really allowed me to pull each room together in a really cohesive way. I love that I can pull up inspiration photos, find products that fit within my space, and I had a lot of fun as well, just designing my home. So I found the perfect bar stools at the right counter height. Our couch is one of my favorite things, in addition to the rug with it, and seeing those sort of paired next to each other on the idea book was so important. The fabric is pet friendly.
We actually didn't have a couch this nice before, and now I want to sleep on this thing all the time.
We didn't waste any space with hallways. Everything's sort of right off the core here.
The bathroom, there's heated floors. I got my fun tile that I wanted, and the sort of clean lines of the shower wall going up to a gorgeous window. We have an office where Donovan works from home. And then there's the bedroom, which I love because the window stares up at these evergreen trees. We knew it was going to be a smaller room, so you want to make sure that everything you're bringing in is functional and beautiful.
We put in our own closet system. Living in this small space is really necessary to think about what you're buying and where it's going to go.
It's a very functional use of space because of the items we've picked out and the design of this home with the tall ceilings and the natural light and the big open space. I love that Sean incorporated these French doors that open to the outside deck. Outside time is so valuable to people that live in the Northwest. Believe it or not, it does, when the sun comes out, it does get warm here. It does get up to the 90s and rarely the hundreds. And so I'm really excited to entertain and host friends out on this beautiful deck.
In green building, we want to build houses as airtight as possible. Add a layer of exterior insulation that wraps the house. It's outside the plywood, covers all of the studs. So think of like a blanket around your house, right? If you're cold in the winter, do you want to stuff insulation between your ribs or put on a jacket? So this house has a jacket, okay? It's 2 inches of mineral wool board. For heating and cooling, we're using a ductless heat pump, also known as a mini split. In the bedrooms, we're using a radiant panel on the ceiling that creates radiant heat. Kind of creates that sort of campfire, cozy warmth.
The way he vacuum sealed this house was very interesting. Basically vaporizes caulking, blows it throughout the house, and it auto seals the house.
Really, it's like fix-a-flat for your house. Because it's so airtight, we want to provide fresh air. I'm doing that in this case through an ERV, an energy recovery ventilator. The recovery part is that before that stale air, which has been heated inside in the winter, leaves the building, it exchanges heat with the incoming air. They don't mix, but the heat is transferred to the incoming air. So on a day like today where it's 45 out, instead of bringing in 45-degree air, I'm bringing in 63-degree air or something like that, fresh air. It's not creating heat, but it's recovering a lot of it, so it's more comfortable, it's more energy efficient.
So we built a really strong friendship with Sean, and we worked really closely together. We never felt like we had to compromise on details. We would give him feedback and he would say, oh, I have a way to make that work.
It's very fulfilling to have that home finished, have homeowners be very happy with it and walk into just a nice cozy home and a nice space.
We went from 1,800 square foot to 700 square foot.
We decluttered our space, we decluttered our minds, and we've been able to spend a lot more time doing the things we love and spending time with family and friends.
I'm Sean from Targa Homes. Katrina, how much does a project this size cost? Always a popular question. Always the answer is it depends on your site and a lot of different factors. But this project was in the range of 230,000. Not sure I could do it for that much. Even today, prices are going up pretty quickly. Is the price for green building different from conventional? Not nearly as much as people think. When you can plan from the start, the attributes or things that you're doing that you would label as green, it can have a pretty minimal impact. I like to say your choice in countertops and flooring can impact the budget more than any sort of green building nerdery that I'm suggesting or implementing. An example of Cork Floors. These Cork Floors that we used here are super green, super healthy, super comfortable, and they're like less than $4 a square foot. So, Peter, great point. A tenet of green building is, are you okay with paying more now and saving 6 times that amount in the life of the house or more? So there's always that upfront cost versus operational cost. This home uses very little energy because it is so well insulated and has such efficient heating systems and hot water systems. So this is a bigger topic, but certainly you should leave here not thinking that green buildings are way more expensive and that, and there are definitely long-term benefits. So this is I'm Sean from Targa Homes. By the way, Targa Homes employee roster is me and I do a fair amount of the work myself because I like to, and I'm kind of a little anal retentive when it makes sense. I certainly sub out plumbing, electrical, sheetrock, paint. I mean, who wants to do sheetrock really? But a lot of the work I do myself, like this, installing this ERV, you saw in the video, I talked about an energy recovery ventilator. Somewhat unusual piece of equipment. And I don't trust many people to do that except myself. I've had a lot of experience in this field and working with these manufacturers and devices. So something I like to do myself. How long did this build take from conception to movement? Okay. If you're asking Katrina, because conception, literally my first meeting with the Watts, it was over a year. Build time was about 7 months. But I like to say for backyard cottages, it is roughly a year from the day you meet to the day it's done, or or that order of magnitude. Yeah. So something to have in your mind. In Seattle at least, permitting is 2 or 3 months, design is 2 or 3 months. So those there's a fair amount of waiting for the permit and things like that. Thank you, George, for your hamburger comment. It's a good analogy, great one. So yeah, this is the Watt Cottage, or the reclaimed cottage. The homeowner's last name is Watt, so they have a Instagram handle, Wattage Cottage. I think it's at the Wattage Cottage. You can find it from my Instagram feed, which I post a lot of stuff at, and some of it's fairly nerdy. But if you go to @Targa Homes, either on Instagram or Facebook, you can see some stuff there. So I built this last year, and it was built out of mostly reclaimed lumber from old Seattle homes, or actually in this case, one more commercial building. And that's one of the unique aspects of the project. You can find a picture of the kind of the framed structure, give you a sense for what that looks like. Reclaimed lumber is cool because it's old and really dense wood, and doesn't require a lot of energy to cut trees down and ship them through the forest to a mill. So it's a lower carbon impact. It's great wood. Like I was saying early on, it wasn't without its challenges. In 100 years ago, they probably didn't cut every stud to 3.5 inches. So I had to kind of run a bunch of these through the table saw to get nice flat walls. So that took some time. Building a home out of reclaimed lumber is not for everyone, that's for sure. So thank you, Denise. It had challenges, but I'm really proud of it. I think it came out great, and it just feels really good to use old wood. So that was kind of one of the main unusual aspects of the project. What else? I mean, of course, guys, shout out questions if you have them, or put them in chat. I'm just going to kind of scroll through my pictures here from construction. I do have a cool time lapse too. We can try that if you want. Let's see. I used a time lapse camera made by Breno, and let's see if it'll let me share this. It hasn't been letting me go. I know you can't see it. Hold on. So we see sewer line going in, diamond piers, floor system. Time lapse is good. So obviously, sheet goods like subfloor and plywood were not reclaimed. Didn't really use reclaimed lumber back then, or reclaimed. They didn't really have plywood 100 years ago. So that was good. You can see the homeowner's a big fisherman, so he's got a boat. Always going fishing. Building the deck out front. the front wall, put 1x4 wood battens against the rock wall, and attach your siding. How many times did George? I didn't have to move the boat, George. Donovan, the homeowner, went fishing probably 3 times a week, and got some cool fish. So this little backyard cottage has a ductless mini split as the main source of heat, but in the bedrooms, as you probably know, a ductless mini split will heat and cool very quietly and efficiently the room that it's in. So if you have a lot of rooms that are closed off by doors, it's often good to put a backup, what you might call a backup heat source, in the smaller rooms. For that, I used radiant panels from Mighty Energy. They're really cool for a few reasons. I'm just finding a picture here, folks. Give me a quick second. Here we go. Well, this is sort of an installation picture. But let me share this because it kind of elucidates how they work. So you can see here, it looks like a piece of drywall. It's about 1/2 inch thick. It's white. It's very inconspicuous. It mounts to the ceiling. It has no moving parts. It creates radiant heat, which, as you saw in the video, is heating the objects in the room, like your body, and makes it feel like that campfire, warm, fuzzy feeling. Like if it's 30 degrees out, but you're standing next to a campfire, how do you feel warm? Well, one of the methods of heat transfer is radiant, and that is heat traveling directly from a warmer object to a colder object and heating it up. So these are cool because, like I said, they're low profile. You don't notice them. They can be mounted on the ceiling, so it really frees up the room for any sort of furniture placement you want to go with. They have no moving parts. They heat up pretty quickly, and are just great. So yeah, I've used those in a couple of different applications, and I put the link in the chat if you guys can open the chat. I put 2 links in there just now for the Cork and then for Mighty Energy, where you get these panels. And thank you to the Green Home folks, and for helping me out in chat there. And yeah, guys, welcome to everyone who's new. Put questions in the chat box if you like, or just shout them out. You can unmute and just talk to me. I'm an actual human sitting here, blabbing at you about green building.
Cool project, Sean. Nice work. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Laura. I don't know if you ever got to see the final. I guess
No.
but came out really good.
Yeah, nice.
Nancy asked the cost per square foot. Everyone likes cost numbers. So I built this for roughly $230,000, which is about $325 a square foot. That's a good number. I think for backyard cottages, 300-ish per square foot is a good number. A smaller space like a cottage will skew that price per square footage a little higher just because it is smaller square footage. As I always say, backyard cottages are not tiny homes. They're not on a trailer. They are a permanent structure with a foundation and a permanent sewer connection and electrical connection. So my sewer guy comes out and puts a 4-inch line in, whether this is a 5,000 square foot house or 700. So that kind of cost, that's one example, but that kind of cost causes that number, is one of the reasons that number per square foot skews a little higher. So those are good rough numbers for people to think of. I mean, this had a pretty tight budget. I tell people, if I meet with them right now, is like $250,000 is kind of your starting point. Granted, there are a lot of variables to these things. Your site, there's a lot of variables, but that is just if you think you can build a backyard cottage for $100,000, I'm here to say unlikely.
Is that number just to build or also site prep?
That's for this project?
Yes.
in general. That includes site prep. I mean, unless there's some shoring involved or some extra crazy thing. Like I said, that's sort of a starting number, but that's everything in with tax too. That's what I'm seeing, you know, and you know, from what I've heard, lumber prices have gone up 30% in the last few months, so it's a shifting number, but you know, I think it's a good kind of ballpark to have your mindset on. Rachel asked, with the cottage raised on piers, what was your floor insulation? Great question. So, as I had said before, I use these diamond piers, and I'll find a picture of that right now, which are cool and had a lot of benefits. It has its challenges, though. Let me share this screen. And I do see your question, Pat, and I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so here we see these diamond piers, and I think you can still see my video, but here's like a little model of one they gave me. The ground is here, so everything under here is under the earth, which creates this stable pin kind of structure. So you put those in the ground, put a post on them, laser all the posts level and cut them off, then frame your floor above that. So now I have a floor, a 2x12 floor system that's, in this case, about 2 feet off the ground, the low point. I built it at that height so that humans could get under there and run plumbing and electrical and insulation. And that has its drawbacks. You know, now I have an open cavity. This is really basically an open crawl space. So how do you deal with that? Because one of the challenges, you don't want like animals living under there or crawling into your floor system. I put R38 bats in the floor, and then my insulators, and I had sort of planned to kind of get under there and put plywood up maybe, but my insulators, which is Superior Insulation, good company, have a product that's what they call a rat barrier. It's like a real heavy plastic fabric. I'm looking for a picture of it. Barrier membrane sheet product that they staple up to the bottom side of all of the floor joists. So that sealed it in pretty well. I got billion staples on this thing around all the pipes. Not that many pipes, but I don't know if I have a picture of that. I guess it didn't make my exciting picture list. But I feel pretty good about that. The other thing I did, Rachel, is I left it pretty open. Here's, I'm going to switch to a final picture of the structure. You can see now the deck out front sort of gives us a little bit of a screen, but it's pretty open. And my theory was the more open it is, the less cozy and comfortable it might be for critters to live in. So, you know, that's a look that you might or might not like. By the way, this little panel you see here is for shear strength. That was dictated by the engineers to stiffen the foundation system. But you could put skirting on this certainly, and it would still be fine, I'm sure. We didn't really have the budget in this project to do that. So I hope that answers your question, Rachel. Pat, how long does it take you to build one? Do you ever build them in Olympia? Build time on these is 6 months-ish on average, I'd say. And unfortunately, I can't build Olympia. Targa Homes is me, just me. And I do a fair amount of the work myself because I like to. And I couldn't travel to Olympia every day. So unfortunately, I'm sorry. I really build in the Seattle area. So I have a question. Does the rat barrier allow humidity to escape out the bottom? Yeah, it's vapor open. And I will also say the floor system can dry to the inside as well. It's 2x12s, it's plywood, or I guess OSB subfloor, and then the cork flooring goes right on top of the OSB. It has its own cork backer, so there's no like poly under the cork, so it's pretty vapor open in all directions. As is the wall. You know, this wall has mineral wool insulation and vapor transmission in both directions. So I'm kind of a building science nerd, so I apologize if I'm getting too nerdy for people, but Yeah. Pat, do I have friends in Olympia who build them? The best outfit I know in Olympia is an architecture group called Artisan Group. And I would ask them. They are going to know the high performance builders in Olympia. Artisans Group. Tessa and Randy. Really good architects. They used to build, but now they just design it, and they're sort of in the passive house world. So check them out, Pat. I hope you heard that. Artisans Group in Olympia. Okay, welcome a bunch of people. Feel free to type questions into the chat. You can see how to open that. Or just shout them out, unmute yourself and shout them out. Targa Home, my name is Sean, by the way. I'm the owner and sole employee of Targa Homes. I started this company after having spent years in the green building certification world, built green as well as passive house. And yes, Marie, I will repeat the presentation. And I now build on my own just because I like to. And Smartsheet Ian, interesting first name, Ian. Just kidding. How does the ERV do for this kind of air quality right now? Okay. If you guys go, I just posted on Instagram/Facebook about this, but if you're curious about my daily activity and are on Instagram or Facebook, my handle is just @Targa Homes. So facebook.com/Targa Homes or just look up Targa Homes on Instagram. I do frequent posts on stuff like this, but I was saying earlier to the group, I just was at this Watt Cottage yesterday, on Friday, changing the filter in the ERV. So this home is a substantially airtight home with an ERV for ventilation. That's an energy recovery ventilator. It's a device that's sole purpose is to bring fresh air into the house and filter it before it does that. And exhaust stale air from the home. So the answer to your question, Ian, is it does very well right now. This is exactly the kind of home you want to have in a smoky environment. You know, generally speaking, the air quality outdoors is usually better than indoors. Certainly, if it's not, or even if it is, an ERV providing fresh filtered air 24 hours a day is fantastic for your indoor air quality right now. I pulled that filter out and it looked pretty bad, beat up. It's a MERV 13 filter. This is a Panasonic IntelliBalance I'm using. So it's filtering lots of particulates and doing a great job for indoor air quality. Here are the tour sponsors. And just want to let everyone know, awesome people behind this tour. There's a couple notes to keep in mind, as well as you guys will be able to, for $20, get replays of all the sites, I believe, up to 2 weeks after the event. And just go to the Pay Summit link where you got tickets to do that. I'll paste that right here. Chrissy, what does an initial consultation look like in time of COVID? Oh, I do video. I've done meetings outside in the backyard distance with people. It hasn't been too hard to kind of get around that. But certainly, you know, and it's worth saying, Chrissy, I'm a builder. I work with architects. I have a few that I like to work with, so I'm used to facilitating that connection, but I don't design these. But certainly happy to have a consultation meeting with whoever is interested, yeah, and kind of go over the basics. Yeah. Thanks, Katrina. George, how did Diamond Pier install go? It was pretty easy. I guess, save for the fact that the soil on this site, 2 or 3 feet down, was basically glacial till. So let me get a picture of the Diamond Piers. I did it by myself. Took about 6 days. Put a picture up here, George. Let me see. Sure. Here's what they look like. You put this, for those that are just joining us, this is the foundation system of this backyard cottage with these Diamond Piers. It's a product, the company is actually based in Gig Harbor, but it is a precast concrete head, I'll call it, which you bury halfway into the earth. and drive these are like 5-foot steel pipes into the ground. It creates a sort of a pin pier. It's very stable, and then you put posts on top of the receivers here. Let me find a picture of that. Here's the posts. So yeah, George, it was fine. It's kind of nice to do it myself and not have to bring an excavator out. And yes, it rained, but that's Seattle. And once all these piers are in, you put posts in and laser them and cut them level and build your floor. You know, like I said earlier, certainly diamond piers are not perfect for every project. They have their challenges and their drawbacks. You're as opposed to a slab on grade, you're framing a floor system, so that's more cost. I did save a little money, I think, still compared to a slab, and it certainly was quicker than pouring a concrete slab. April, did you tie sewer to the street to the existing house? In this case, we tied to the side sewer outside the house, so the new sewer line did not go in the house. We came down the side yard, and it was pretty easy, actually. It was a long run, but it was fairly easy. I will say the challenge was to get gravity the right drop. By the time it got to the backyard cottage, it was only about 6 inches underground, which technically I don't think. So the inspector made us put stronger pipe in for that section, but did sign off on it. So that was a bit of a challenge. But it's a great thing to bring up. You know, when I do consultations, Chrissy, some of the first things you unfortunately to talk about are super boring, like sewer. Where's your sewer line? What kind of condition is it in? Where is your electrical box? You know, your existing panel in the main house. Can we branch off that? Do you have to put a new meter in? Where's the electrical line going? So these backyard cottages are not tiny homes. They are permanent structures connected to sewer and water and electrical, and so you got to figure that out for sure. Let's see, I got some other pictures here if you guys are interested in. Certainly, like I said, shout out any questions in the chat or live with your human voice if you want. Thank you, George, for my tidy jobs thing. I did have this, I'll show you this picture. The reclaimed lumber, which came from Sledge, my friend Jim, came in a shipping container, which I then used quite extensively to store things. It was nice to have on site. But here's kind of a mid-construction shot. Most of the roof rafters were reclaimed. I had to buy a few new ones, but yeah, most of them are reclaimed. 2x8 roof rafters, nice overhangs. Always like to build with overhangs.
Something nice about going to all these.
Much better for water protection, having a durable structure in the Northwest where it rains a lot. Let's see. If you guys have any specific topics you want to hear about, let me know. But I have a bunch of construction pictures. I also have some finished pictures. Why don't we just do a few of the people love pretty pictures to give you a sense for the inside of the house. A couple I haven't shown yet. Let me close a few of these. This is the office, so the smaller of the 2 bedrooms. Behind this pocket door is the mechanical room, where there's the water heater and washer dryer. It's not much of it, it's really just the water heaters, I guess was the mechanical portion. And here's the finished kind of sitting room. You can see there's a very tall wall here. Lots of light. Really makes this 700 square foot DADU feel bigger. Peter, tips for overall tight envelope best practices. That's a big question. Like I had said, I used Aero Barrier. Aero Barrier is this new product / procedure whereby to air seal a home. We now want to build homes as airtight as possible, and provide mechanical ventilation. This is the debate's over. Houses don't need to breathe. People need to breathe. So building airtight is kind of just the best way to do things these days. And there's a few different approaches to that: tapes, membranes, fluid applied products to seal up. What you're sealing up is the shell of the building, all the plywood, any cracks in between intersections of walls and ceilings and floors. And when you get down to it, there's a lot of places to air seal. What I like about aero barrier is it takes the humans out of it. With a traditional process, you're relying on a human to either caulk or tape or put a membrane over or find all of the holes and cracks in your home, some of which are very small, but a 1/32 inch crack at your, your base plate that's 20 feet long adds up to a pretty big hole. So aero barrier is a process where, and you guys can look this up, I'll put a link in the chat. You pressurize the home with a blower door system. You introduce a aerosolized caulk, essentially a latex caulk. It's water-based and harmless, into the building, and where the air flows out of the building, that caulk is designed to, it's not a caulk, it's a special product actually, but it's designed to coagulate and fill up the hole. Like I said in the video, it's like fix a flat for your house. So if you have some hole behind the stair stringer that a human could never see, air barrier finds it and seals it up, and you basically wait a couple hours and it gets your air leakage to basically zero. So certainly if you're trying to build a passive house, which is a construction technique that requires very high levels of air sealing, I think air barrier is a no-brainer. But even if you're just trying to pass code requires a certain amount of air tightness. It can make a lot of sense. And I mean, Peter, it's a big topic. I recommend going on places like Green Building Advisor, which is a great website for not just green building things, but just best practices. There's a company called Building Science Corporation. Joe Stiebrick is a well-known building science dude, and there's a ton, and that's a great site with all kinds of free info for building science. I'm a big building science nerd, and not everyone is, but let's see. George, how is it getting a flat siding installed in mineral wool? Yeah, people talk about this, George, like it's some huge, I don't know. I put a long level up to it. I screwed these up. Okay, let's talk about this. What George is asking is, so let me just find a picture that will help illustrate this. Give me 1 second, folks. As I had said, I wrapped the home in mineral wool, a product called Rock Wool, which used to be called Rock Soul. I'm going to share this picture. Welcome, Nancy. Where is it? Okay, if you guys can see this, this is the outside the building before the siding went up. So let me just say welcome, Nancy and Pat and Maggie. You guys, shout out if you have any questions, or just put them in chat here. I'm looking at the chat. And George is asking about flat siding. Okay, so now we have this building that's wrapped in mineral wool. This is a somewhat squishy board. It's fairly rigid, but it certainly has some squish to it. And so I applied these 1x4 wood battens, you'd call them, with 5-inch screws. So these little holes you can see here are screws to fix them into the studs into the wall. So this is very well secured. These battens are very well secured to the structure. It provides the purpose of these is to provide, it's twofold, to provide a surface to nail your siding to, and to provide what's called a rain screen gap. So between the siding and this mineral wool, you now have a 3/4 inch gap, which allows any moisture that gets behind the siding to drain down, and it allows air to flow behind the siding and keep it dry. Very, very good way to do siding, especially in wet climates like ours. So the next question is, okay, well, I've got this board, and when I screw this screw in real tight, the batten squishes into the wool. So what you risk is having battens that are in different planes, so to speak, and then your siding can look wavy and weird once you put it onto these battens. you read a lot about this, and frankly, my answer, George, is I put a long level across them and moved some screws in and out, and it was fine. It really didn't seem to be a big problem when the front wall here was reclaimed 1x5, and the rest was hardy panel, and it all looks fine, you know. And I don't claim, and it wasn't perfect, but I put a long level across a bunch of them, kind of went down the wall and adjusted as I could, and it turned out okay. Is aero barrier a substitute for typical air sealing, just a final step? Oh, great question, George. I mean, I think it can be a 100% substitute, yes. There's a lot of products that intersect air sealing and what's called a WRB, right? The weather resistant barrier, which is really a moisture barrier. So you have to decide what you're doing for water and what you're doing for air, and the overlap, if any, of those two. But I think, George, I think you could build a home before you insulate it, do aero barrier, and then put Tyvek on for water and probably be fine. In this case, I didn't. I used a pretty nice house wrap from 475 called Mento. I taped all the seams. It's probably overkill and sort of overlapping, but you know, belt and suspenders, I guess. That's my thoughts, I guess, George. And you know, you can do aero barrier at different times in the project. You can. I think the best time is to do it to seal up the sheathing and do it right before you insulate. But you can also do it, depending on if you have a vented roof or not, right after you sheetrock. That will seal the sheetrock layer. Thanks, George. So yes, here's an important picture of Donovan with a king salmon. Just to answer all the questions about the boat coming in and out in the time lapse. There's Donovan. It's a pretty nice fish. Okay, so aero barrier. Let's talk about ventilation, because we're in a city, most of us at least, that has a very poor air quality right now. This home is substantially airtight via a process called aero barrier, which I was just talking about. So the home does not have a lot of air leakage, very little in fact. So everyone thinks, oh God, that sounds terrifying, am I gonna suffocate? The air tightness is always should be paired with mechanical ventilation. So I'm finding a picture here. In this home, I used what's called an energy recovery ventilator. And that is a device that's sole purpose is to provide ventilation in the home. This is what it looks like. It's in the ceiling in the bathroom behind a panel. And what this thing does is it brings in fresh air from outside and runs it over a very nice filter. At the same time, and then it distributes it through ducts to the bedroom and the main room. At the same time, it is exhausting air from the bathroom, the laundry room, and outside the kitchen, outside the house. So it's exhausting air out and bringing fresh air in and filtering the fresh air. The recovery part is when it's 40 degrees outside, we don't really want to bring in just 40-degree air. We want to bring in warmer air. So to do that, there's a heat exchanger inside here. The air that is already warm inside exchanges heat with the incoming air and warms it up. So that instead of bringing 40-degree air, bringing in 40-degree air, we're bringing in like 63-degree air. So that's the recovery part of the energy recovery ventilator. Peter, this Panasonic IntelliBalance. So Peter's asking about the efficiency of the ERV, and what that means is, okay, well, we're recovering heat from the air that's leaving, but how much, right? Like, how efficient is that air? Is that heat exchange? The two streams don't mix at all. They stay separate, but they exchange heat across a thing that basically looks like a radiator in your car. And these devices can do that at varying efficiencies. This Panasonic, I believe, Peter's about 80, more like 81%, I think. You can look it up, but it's about that. The best ERVs and HRVs are made by a company called Zender. It's like the Ferrari of HRVs, and they're more in the 90 plus 94% efficiency. The kind of worst ones are probably more like in the 60s. And you know, they all sound pretty good, but it does make a difference. This device runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So when you have, so that's why I think that numbers like the recovery efficiency and also the energy efficiency, how many watts they use, are important, because that's a lot of runtime. So this ERV, and forgive me for getting a little nerdy here, folks, but this ERV has what's called ECM motors, electronically commutated motors, and those are much more efficient motors for the fans. So it only draws, I think, 22 watts I measured it at, which is pretty low for something that runs all the time. What would I do if I had no budget? Yeah, I put one of these in. They're fantastic. Made in Germany, or no, I think they're made in Switzerland. Really nice product for ventilation. Who else has questions? Timothy? Pat? Nancy? I'm just looking at some pictures of the countertops. Maybe I can fire one of those up here. I used some Madrona wood countertops. These are this is a local, sustainably harvested wood. Let's see. Here we go. It's pretty cool stuff. Beautiful wood. The hardwood. This is a butcher block. Obviously, I put some oil on it, some tung oil mix, and cut it myself. Really cool countertop. You know, it doesn't look brand new forever. It requires some maintenance, or not, depending on the kind of look you're going for. But pretty cool wood, I thought. A little stressful cutting through that for the sink opening, for example, but got it done. Here's a picture of, this is the water heater. So this is, again, a hybrid water heater, which has a heat pump on the top here, and also has electric coils in case the heat pump is it is too cold out for it to work effectively, or too much demand. So a heat pump takes heat from the air and puts it into the water. And to do that, you need to run air through it. You can either do that using the air in the room, more appropriate if you're in like a garage, or here I ducted air in and out from outside. So it's not, because it takes heat from the air, it blows off cold air. So you generally don't want to have that done inside. So anyway, that's the water heater. What else can I show you guys?
Ceiling heater 110 or 220?
Voltage, those are 240 volt. It might come in a 110. It's a hardwired product. I don't think, no, I think it's all 240. Let's see. Other pictures. So yeah, we talked about diamond pure foundation, reclaimed wood. I tend to get nerdy on building science stuff, but I certainly want to hit just sort of the more human aspects of the project that people do. You know, it's a 700 square foot space. It's got very tall ceilings inside, 13 foot at the high side. Just pull out some pictures here. The homeowners lived in the main house on this property. I met with them early, and they're like, we're just gonna build this thing and rent it. And then the more we kind of got into it, the more they were like, yeah, I think we'll just live here, because it's really a nice space. And I think as the project went on, they realized that it would just be really a comfortable place to live. So it's 600 square feet.
Kitchen came out really nice. These are IKEA cabinets, folks. I have to say, pretty sturdy stuff. I mean, everyone thinks of IKEA as sort of disposable, but they're using industry standard glides and pulls. The boxes are well put together. I mounted these on plywood bases, so a more custom way to do cabinets. So they're very sturdy and secure, as opposed to like the IKEA like plastic feet. And just to answer Monica, I don't design these. I'm just a builder, but I have architects that I work with. So I'm certainly used to kind of shepherding clients through that process. I'm just a builder, but I work closely with a couple different architects. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with IKEA cabinets. I think they came out nice. They have a lot of good options, and you know, will they last 100 years? Probably not, but I don't think a lot of things will. So here's the kitchen. I was saying to an earlier group, I like to plan pretty carefully my electrical. In this case, I don't know if you can see this glow up here, but I put a switch in that controls some switched outlets up here that are like LED strip lights above the cabinets. Makes a really cool like nighttime glow, nightlight glow, especially with these tall ceilings. So thinking about that early is something that I think is important. Also, you can see in this, these are little like shelves I made out of reclaimed, these are actually leftover roof rafters, but it's beautiful reclaimed fur. So I made some floating shelves and planned this outlet right here early on, right? I mean, I'm looking at a 2x4 is when I put this outlet in, but I gave the homeowners this homewarming gift of a Sonos, and plugs in nicely right there. So planning, folks, you know, it pays off. Ian, what kind of windows do you generally recommend for green standpoint? Low E triple pane vinyl. Okay. So I guess I would say something I say to everyone when it comes to materials, and not as much to some extent windows, but more with things like flooring and finishes. Green is really hard, right? There's always trade-offs. This flooring, you know, is very green, but you know, not everyone loves the appearance of cork, right? So there's rarely a like a silver bullet for materials. But windows, windows have, I would say, two green aspects, right? One is the performance of the window, so thermally, how well is it, thermal and air leakage, how tight is it and how well insulating is it? And the other is the materials they use to make the window, right? A lot of windows are vinyl. Vinyl is not a harmful product after it's installed, but it does have some nasty chemicals during production. That's generally why you see people trying to avoid PVC and vinyl. But it's cost effective. These are vinyl windows in this project. A lot of that was driven by budget. I installed them really well, so I think they'll last a long time. But it's plastic, yeah. So would I prefer a fiberglass or wood window from a material standpoint? Yes. These are double pane windows. Triple pane are better thermally. I'm using some vinyl triple panes on my current project, which are actually very affordable. But there's a world of windows out there, and you can spend almost as much as you'd like on windows, ranging from what I'm using here, and there's of course much lower end windows, to a European triple pane thermally broken window from Zola or something like that. There's some very high end windows out there. So it's a tough question. It's a lot of it's driven by the budget of the project. Alan, these are Prime windows and doors, vinyl windows. The company's called Prime. I get them through Medallion Industries, a distributor.
That has 2 bedrooms. They're both small, and one of them is being used as an office. Let me get a picture of the bedrooms. But they love living there, and it's a great, you know, the story of backyard cottages is all about kind of downsizing, and this is the bedroom. It's kind of hard to take a picture of a tiny bedroom, but the home came with a cat. That's a joke. People can fit in the space they're given, I think, and it's a more popular option. Pat asks, where do you get the reclaimed wood? I got it from a place called Sledge, Seattle. Let me put that link in here. I was talking with someone earlier about this. I guess the disclaimer is that Sledge is a company that does deconstruction of homes, but it's not really a consumer-facing company. You can't just call them up and get reclaimed wood. I mean, I guess you could, but it's more of a B2B company. But I'll put that link in here. My friend Jim runs it, and they're doing deconstruction of homes. They're not as much doing framing packages like they did for me at this point. It's a lot more finish level product, but just love the story of deconstruction. You know, if you guys live in Seattle, everyone's had the experience where you drive around and just watch these old homes get crunched up and thrown in the dumpster. And that's not to say they don't recycle some of that, but it is a shame. And certainly if a home has a lot of this reclaimed wood is really beautiful wood, and reusing it has its benefits, certainly. I can show you guys some pictures of the reclaimed lumber. I was talking about this earlier. Let's see. Here's a good picture. One of the interesting little notes on reclaimed lumber is I had to have it graded. The city of Shoreline said, well, that's, you know, most lumber that's new from the mill has a grade stamp on it. The grading refers to the prescriptive sort of strength of the wood. We know that a 2x4 can hold this many pounds, and it plays into the engineering, so it's an important factor in the whole kind of ecosystem. But 100-year-old wood doesn't have that grade from the stamp from the mill, so to speak. So I actually had to find a lumber grader who would travel to the site and kind of inspect all these. These are 2x12s here, all these numbers for strength. And what he's looking for is kind of knots in the wood and checks and cracks. And to be honest, he found a bunch that were really not up to par. And a lot of them were, of course, but that was an interesting little detour. So yeah, reclaimed lumber, old wood, pretty cool stuff. April, do you have a long waiting list for your services? I'm pretty popular. I'm pretty awesome. No, I have a couple projects in design right now, but probably not as many as you'd think. So certainly I'd be happy to talk if you have a project in mind. No, I don't have a long list. I'm here. I'm available, people. I wanted to show you this picture. This is from a 4x12 City Lumber Company. I think was written on there 100 years ago. Pretty cool stuff. And I showed this before, but kind of an illustration of the difference between new and reclaimed lumber is shown right here. So on the top we see a new 4x12, and the bottom we see a old one. You can tell by the growth rings how much more dense this old wood is. New lumber is grown for speed, right? We want to harvest these forests as quick as possible, so it creates bigger growth rings and less dense wood. Nancy asked, did you need to go through board by board to check for mold? No, I mean not mold. We needed to go through board by board to check for, like I said, structural integrity problems like holes, knots, mainly holes or notches in the surface. The edge of the board affects the strength. Checks or cracks that are, it's actually interesting that the grader has, and I don't remember all of his stats right now, but if a crack is a certain angle and length in the board, it can disqualify it. If a certain number of knots in a given area, it's a fairly technical procedure. But we didn't have any mold. We had markings like that, like I just showed you, and some of them were sort of dirty looking, but other than that, no mold. Some paint, old paint.
But I'm just showing the finished space here. Here's the kind of main living area. So we see this is reclaimed wood too. We made a cool accent. It's two walled really. It's this one and the one that wraps around too. You can see the ductless mini split back here. This is the small bedroom or office. This is the bathroom door in the middle here. And this is the main bedroom. And let's see, Ian, here's the bedroom layout. Yeah, why don't I'll open up the plans here so we can just see how this thing lays out. But this is a main room, very tall ceilings, lots of light. Cork flooring we talked about, Madrona countertops, both of these from Green Home Solutions. I'll put that link in here. And then you get the floor plans. These guys, I'm putting this link in chat, are a great resource locally for, actually more than locally, for flooring, countertops, very sustainable products. Let me open the plans. We'll just look at the layout real quick. I should mention, these plans are available for purchase on my website as part of a really cool ebook we made with help from my homeowner, who's very skilled with things like this. I'll put a link to that right now. But these are for sale as part of a kind of ADU guide. Oops, send it to Monica. I'll send it to everyone. So keep that in mind. We can talk about that. You can always send me a question through my website or just Sean@targahomes.com. And like I said earlier, my activity is regularly posted on Instagram, Targa Homes, on Facebook. All right, here's the plans. So hopefully you guys can see this. Deck out front here. This is the front door. A nice 30 by 8 deck. But if I zoom in a little here, so you come in the front room, there's a coat closet here. This is the smaller bedroom or office. Bathroom here with a tub and shower, full size. Heated floor, heated tile floor, which feels great. And the main bedroom here, which is not big, but this closet actually is pretty nice walk-in closet, pretty good size. So they are living here pretty effectively in 700 square feet. This closet off here has the washer dryer and the water heater, like you can see, as well as some storage area. And this is the main room with the kitchen down here. Yeah, so that gives you an idea. The tall wall is the top here. Above the bedrooms is a drop ceiling. So here's a cross section of the place. Pretty simple. It wasn't on the plans here, but I'm drawing it in. Drop ceiling comes across here. So in this area is where the ERV is above the bathroom. And gosh, that's the ventilation device that brings fresh air in, filters it 24 hours a day. So that's how I used that's kind of a mechanical chase. Pipe plumbing runs through there too, and some other things. Any questions about the plans while I got them open here? Here's the elevation, as you guys can see.
But the the flat ceiling does not extend across the master bedroom, does it?
It does, yes. It's this whole area.
Oh.
The whole back half. Yeah. And it's still a 9-foot ceiling in there. Yeah, to answer your question, it's the ceiling height is 9 feet flat in this deck, so it's still a pretty generous ceiling height.
Wow.
Like 10 to 13 in this main room. So yeah, it doesn't feel really low particularly.
Nice.
Yeah. What else? I like to, sometimes you improvise a little during construction, like as I was framing this closet, which, we had just going up to the ceiling, I decided to stop it at about 7 foot and create like a shelf here for storage, right? Things like that. I did that in my current project, kind of on the fly, like, why don't we bump this upper wall back and create a shelf for storage. Because these small places, you could never have too much storage. I mean, kind of almost in any size home, but all the little nooks and crannies you can provide in a smaller home, I think, are totally worth it. So what else?
We're just going through some pictures right now. Here's one of framing. So it's just a big shed roof. I framed this myself, mostly alone, but I had friends helping. That's my buddy Jordan helping. I'm not framing my current project myself. It was a lot of work, and the one I'm on right now is 2 stories. So, but it was a good experience and pretty interesting to work with all this reclaimed lumber. But a lot of hard work for sure. Nancy asks, can you talk about the flooring you used? Absolutely. So I used, and if you look through the earlier comments, Nancy, I put a link there. Oh no, I didn't put a link. I will put a link. The flooring is Cork Flooring. It's made by a company called Wickanders. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's a Portuguese company. Most cork comes from Portugal. The local retailer is Green Home Solutions, and they're one of the sponsors of this Green Home Tour. And I know those folks, and they're great. And cork is an awesome material. I'm just scrolling to find a picture of the flooring. Here we go. So cork has some cool properties. First of all, this is engineered wood, an engineered flooring product. It is, so these are like 3 foot by 1 foot pieces that click together. So I put it in myself. It was pretty easy. It is a renewable resource. The cork is the bark of the tree, which is harvested and then regrows. It has no VOCs or nasty chemicals or off-gassing. It feels kind of soft, a little bit soft to your touch, to your foot. It has its own little built-in sort of insulation value, so it doesn't feel cold. And it is not expensive. This flooring was just under $4 a square foot. So has it's a great option, I think. This, and this has somewhat of a cork look. Some have more than others. This has sort of a whitewash to it, but a lot of people think of cork as just like, literally the wine bottle look. And a lot of it now is much more stylized. It doesn't have that look. So you're either into that or not, but there's a lot of options out there. But yeah, I got it through Green Home Solutions. Put it in myself. It's floating. Someone asked it before, so it's not fastened to the floor. And basically, what that means is it can expand and contract with temperature, and not cause like buckling or cracking. I don't think it would crack, but maybe buckling at the joints. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Just look through my pictures here. Here's one of the deck. I had talked about this earlier, but the deck is a nice way to make a small space feel bigger. This is a, 8 by 30 deck. It's a pretty big deck. Just some 5/4 cedar decking here. No one asked, but I don't really like the plastic Trex decking. It is made with recycled material, which is good. It is not really recyclable at the end of its life. And it's just it's just filling the world with plastic. I feel like there's some cool options now on my current project. And if you want to look at kind of my daily activity, I post a lot on Instagram and Facebook. It's just at Targa Homes. I mentioned that because I just kind of recently did a deck on my current project from this stuff called Kebony, which also I got from Green Home Solutions. It is a product treated with heat and alcohol. It's just a pine wood. It's real wood treated with heat and alcohol. Hi, Laura. And creates this really dense, durable decking surface that requires no maintenance and looks cool. So I like that option better than like Trex or AZEK. But in this case, I just use cedar. And again, will this last 100 years? No. Is that okay? Yes, because when it's done, it's wood. We can compost it, and you know, and recycle it in that manner. But it'll look nice for a long time, you know, and provides a great outdoor surface. You know. Peter asked, is that treatment similar to shosugiban? No. Shosugiban is literally burning the surface of the wood, and that's a cool process if you guys haven't heard of that. Burns the surface of the wood, which creates a natural kind of protective layer on the wood. Ancient Japanese technique, getting more popular. The Kebony product is more of a industrial procedure, Peter. It's, I think, very high heat and furfural alcohol, I believe it's called, which has it's made in Norway, I believe, and results in this very dense wood.
What else? Oh. Monica's asking time it took to build. It was about 7 months, and you know, if I did it today, could I do it in 6? Maybe, but that's about what it is. Like I maybe mentioned earlier, if you weren't on, you know, Targa Homes is just me, Sean. I come from a background in green building certification and building science, but started this because I wanted to build. The company's just me, and I do a lot of the work myself because I like to work with my hands. And so certainly, if I had a couple of people, it would have been a lot quicker. But I don't think you can build these in 2 months. You know, it's a few months.